At 2 in the morning, my own son, he let a stranger into my home, snuck into my bedroom, and injected a drug into my arm, something meant to cloud my mind. They thought I was sound asleep, but I was awake, and I saw everything. My name is Helen Parker, and I'm 72 years old. Today, I'm going to tell you my story, and the story of how I fought to protect myself and my legacy. So, pull up a chair and listen in as I tell you how it all unfolded. Nights in Maple Creek are usually so peaceful, filled with just the sound of crickets and the wind rustling through the old maple trees. But that night, another sound woke me, the faint creak of the back door. It was 2 in the morning. I hadn't been sleeping well, one of the pesky annoyances of getting older, and I was sitting up in bed, rereading an old novel. That squeak, I knew it. It was the same squeak my George had been promising to fix for years. But, well, he never quite got around to it. I used to nag him about it. Now, in that moment, I found myself silently thanking him for his forgetfulness. My first instinct wasn't fear. 34 years of teaching history taught me how to keep a level head. I gently set my book down and switched off the bedside lamp. The room went dark. I held my breath and I listened. There were footsteps in the kitchen, soft but deliberate. They thought I was fast asleep. My hand, trembling just a bit, reached for my phone. I opened the security camera app my granddaughter Chloe had insisted on installing last Christmas. "Just so I can make sure you're all right, Grandma," she'd said. The screen lit up, showing a grainy black and white image. And then I saw them. 2 figures. One was painfully familiar. It felt like a cold hand squeezed my heart. Not a burglar. Something so much worse. It was Michael, my son, and with him was a strange woman dressed in blue scrubs, like a nurse. A chill ran down my spine, not from fear, but from the cold, hard truth that had just shattered my world. I pressed the phone to my ear, trying to catch their whispered conversation. My mother's a heavy sleeper. Michael's voice was shaky, nervous. "It's just a small dose," the woman replied, her voice flat, emotionless. "It won't hurt her. Just enough to make her a little groggy and more agreeable for the next few days. It'll be easier for you to talk to her." My heart sank. My son wanted to steal my will, to weaken my mind and turn me into a compliant puppet. A cold rage began to build in my chest. I lay back down, pulled the covers up to my chin, closed my eyes, and steadied my breathing, trying to mimic the deepest sleep. The bedroom door creaked open. I could smell the faint scent of rubbing alcohol. That woman was standing right beside my bed. I felt her cold fingers touch my wrist, and then a quick, sharp prick in my upper arm. A needle. I didn't flinch. I didn't move. I summoned every ounce of self-control I had to become a dead weight, completely lifeless. The moment she stepped back, I heard Michael's soft sigh of relief. Then the door closed. Their footsteps faded away. Finally, the click of the back door shutting. The house was silent again, but it wasn't a peaceful silence anymore. It was the silence of a crime scene. I shot up in bed, my body shaking uncontrollably. The first thing I did wasn't to call the police. I called Chloe. "Chloe, honey," I said, my voice eerily calm, "come to Grandma's house, now, and don't tell anyone." Less than 20 minutes later, Chloe burst through the door, her face a mask of panic. "Grandma, are you okay?" I didn't say a word. I just quietly played the video on my phone for her. We sat together in the cold kitchen, staring at the screen. I watched her face go from shock to a simmering mix of anger and fear. "Oh my God," Chloe whispered, her voice breaking. They injected you with something?" She grabbed my hand, her eyes welling up with tears. "Grandma, we have to go to the hospital. What if it was something poisonous? I don't care about any plan. Your health comes first. I'm calling 911. Chloe shot up, her hand already on her phone. No, I said, my voice firm. We're going to Dr. Evans' private clinic. He was an old friend of your grandfather's. I think we need discretion. We drove to the clinic in silence. Dr. Evans, a kind man with tired eyes, agreed to see us immediately. I told him the story. He didn't show a hint of doubt. He just listened, then drew a blood sample and sent it for a rush analysis. 2 hours later, the results were in. Dr. Evans looked at us, his face grim. Helen, your blood shows traces of a low-dose sedative. But more concerning, it also contains a small amount of a compound sometimes used in the early treatment of dementia. It wouldn't cause immediate harm in this dosage, but used over time, it could induce symptoms like confusion, short-term memory loss, and impaired judgment. Essentially, it would make a perfectly healthy person appear to have Alzheimer's. The room felt like it was spinning. Chloe squeezed my hand. So that was their plan. They wanted to create a slow, controlled decline, a process where they could step in, declare their mother was no longer competent, and take control of everything, legally. The fear inside me vanished, replaced by an ice-cold resolve. "Thank you, James," I said to Dr. Evans. "Could I ask you a favor? Keep these results confidential, and please draw up a detailed medical report for me." "Of course, Helen. Anything you need, you just call me." On the drive home, Chloe finally spoke, her voice trembling with rage. "So, what do we do, Grandma?" I looked out the window, at the houses of Maple Creek tucked behind the trees. "We can't do this alone. The first thing we need to do is see Samuel Hayes, the lawyer." Samuel's office was on Main Street, small and discreet. He was the son of a dear departed friend of mine. When we laid it all out for him, the video, the medical report, his expression hardened. "This isn't just a family matter anymore, Aunt Helen," Samuel said after a long silence. "This is a criminal case. Your plan to play along is bold, but it's also incredibly dangerous. If we're going to do this, we have to do it by the book." He advised us, "We need more than just one video. We need to prove a pattern of behavior. Your performance will provide that. Every piece of evidence Chloe gathers, send it to me immediately." Then he picked up the phone. "I have an old friend over at the Connecticut State Police, Detective Evans. She specializes in financial fraud and elder abuse. She needs to hear about this." While Samuel was on the phone, I realized my fight wasn't just my own anymore. In parallel with the act Chloe and I were about to stage, another, quieter investigation had just begun. The sun was climbing higher, but my house still felt bathed in a pale, cold light. My little play now had a legal advisor and a silent audience from the police department. It gave me strength, but it also made the weight on my shoulders feel heavier than ever. At 8 o'clock sharp, I picked up the phone and dialed Michael's number. I took a deep breath, pushing aside the image of the son I once loved, and summoned a completely different Helen Parker, a woman who was frail, confused, and frightened. "Hello, Michael?" My voice was shaky, broken. "Mom, what's wrong? You sound strange." There was a flash of impatience in his voice, but it was quickly covered by a mask of feigned concern. I don't know. I didn't sleep well last night, and when I woke up this morning, my head just felt so empty, dear, like there's a fog in my memory." I paused, adding a tired sigh. "And there's this little bruise on my arm. I can't for the life of me remember bumping into anything." I heard a short silence on the other end of the line. He was processing. He was buying it. Then he said, his voice dripping with care, "Oh my goodness, Mom, are you okay? Should I come over and check on you?" "Oh no, it's not necessary. I'm probably just getting old and forgetful," I replied weakly. "No, Mom, your health is the most important thing. I'll swing by around noon to check on you, bring you some food. Don't you go anywhere." I hung up, my hand clutching the cold receiver. The bait was cast. And he took it. Hook, line, and sinker. That afternoon, Michael arrived with a basket of soup and bread. He walked in with the face of a deeply worried, dutiful son. He examined the bruise on my arm, shaking his head with a grave look. "I think you should see a doctor, Mom," he said. "Your memory seems to be a little shaky lately." "Oh, I'm fine, really," I said, waving his concern away, trying to appear just a bit tired. "Don't take it lightly," Michael insisted. Then, as if just remembering, he pulled a thin folder from his leather briefcase. "By the way, I brought a few papers over. Just some small formalities, Mom." He pushed the folder toward me. I picked it up, squinting as I pretended to read. My hands shook deliberately. I glanced quickly at the titles. The first page was Authorization for Utility Bill Payments. Exactly what it said. But the second page, cleverly tucked in the middle, had a very different title. Addendum B, Online Banking Transaction Authority. My blood ran cold. There it was. This wasn't just about paying the electric bill. This was the master key to my entire financial world. It would allow the authorized person to change passwords, execute wire transfers, and access all linked accounts without my physical presence or direct confirmation. "Oh, the print is so small, I can't read a thing," I lamented, pushing my glasses up and down for effect. "That's okay, Mom. It's just standard stuff," Michael said in a sweet, coaxing voice. "You just need to sign right here. It'll make it easier for me to take care of you." I looked at him, a look of pure, trusting innocence, a look I'd practiced in the mirror. I picked up the recorder pen Chloe had given me and signed my name, slower and more shakily than usual. As I pushed the signed documents, the perfect evidence of his deceit, back to my son, I said something that made my own stomach turn. "I trust you, dear." My words put him completely at ease. The days that followed became a series of carefully calculated performances. They visited more often, always bearing food, vitamins, and new documents. Each time, I played the part of the frail, increasingly forgetful mother to perfection. While I was acting, Chloe was my director and stage manager. She secretly installed 2 more micro cameras, one hidden in the old grandfather clock in the living room, another in a fake plant in the hallway. She also gave me a beautiful Parker fountain pen set. One of those pens was a highly sensitive recording device. Every week, Chloe would secretly take a USB drive loaded with evidence to Samuel's office. During a meeting at the end of our second week of the charade, Samuel called me and Chloe to his office. His face was more serious than ever. "I just had a long meeting with Detective Evans," Samuel began. "The situation is escalating faster than we anticipated. First, the woman who called herself a nurse. Her name is Karen Riley. She was arrested 2 days ago in a similar case. When she was questioned and when she found out we had the video, she confessed everything. She said Michael hired her, promised to pay her $5,000. My heart ached. "And here's the more critical part," Samuel continued. "Detective Evans found out why Michael is so desperate. He is drowning in debt. That real estate investment he bragged to you about was a complete disaster. He owes a huge amount of money to private lenders, and they're threatening to take him to court." Samuel pushed copies of the papers I had signed toward us. "And what he's been doing with your assets proves it. This one authorizes him to sell stocks. This one gives him access to the trust fund. He's systematically liquidating your assets, moving the money through multiple small accounts to avoid detection. He's racing against the clock." And, Samuel added, Detective Evans says Michael has been making suspicious inquiries with a facility called Oakwood Serenity Suites. This place has been on their radar for a while due to multiple complaints from other families about financial scams. It seems your son is walking right into a pre-existing trap. He leaned back in his chair. "Detective Evans and I agree. Michael is being cornered. He's running out of patience. He's going to make a final, more aggressive move soon. It's highly likely he'll try to get you into a place like Oakwood to gain total control." The air in the room grew heavy. "So what do we do?" Chloe asked, her voice tense. "The detective and I have a plan," he said, and then he laid it all out for me. A few days later, I called Michael, my voice weak, and invited him over for dinner that weekend. I made the roast chicken he'd loved since he was a boy, but the mood at the dinner table was heavy. Michael tried to act cheerful, but I could see the tension in his jaw. He kept glancing at his phone, his brow furrowed. After dinner, as we were sitting in the living room, I began my performance. I stared out the window, my voice taking on a dreamy quality. "You know, Michael," I began, "the other day, while I was cleaning the attic, I found an old trunk that belonged to your grandfather." I saw Michael's head snap up. He put his coffee cup down, leaning forward slightly. "Inside, I think there were some very old savings bonds," I continued, my voice distant, "and maybe even some government bonds from the war. Your grandfather always said they'd be worth a lot of money someday, but my eyes are so bad now, I can't make out the words." I saw it. A glint in Michael's eyes, a flash of unconcealable greed. He believed he'd just discovered a hidden fortune. This was the solution to all his problems. "Really, Mom? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he said, trying to contain his excitement. "Where did you put it? Let me take a look for you." "Oh, I can't remember which corner I tucked it into," I said, waving my hand dismissively, looking tired. "It's so dusty up there. I'll probably need the weekend to find the energy to look for it. My memory is just so bad these days. I'll let you know when I find it." I had planted the seed. Now I just had to wait for it to sprout in his desperate mind. He wouldn't be able to wait. He would have to act immediately. Just as I predicted. 3 days later, on a Wednesday morning, he called, his voice formal. "Mom, I have wonderful news. I've found the most perfect place for you." "A place? What kind of place?" I asked, my voice full of innocence. "A high-end assisted living facility, Mom. It's called Oakwood Serenity Suites. It's like a 5-star resort. I've already spoken to the director, and they would be delighted to have you visit for a tour and a complimentary lunch tomorrow." My heart gave a single hard thump. The final act had begun. "But I can still take care of myself," I said. "I know you can, Mom, but this is just to be prepared," he soothed. "Think of it as a little outing. Besides, they have a few papers for you to look over, just for registration." "Well, all right then," I replied. "I'll trust her judgment." After I hung up, I immediately called Chloe, who called Samuel, who then called Detective Evans. The chain of command was activated. "He took the bait," I told Chloe. "Tomorrow, 11 in the morning." "We're all set, Director," Chloe replied. "Samuel and Detective Evans will be there. They said you just need to stick to the plan." I barely slept that night. I wasn't afraid. I was reminiscing. I thought about Michael as a little boy, sitting on my lap listening to fairy tales. Had I raised a son? Or had I accidentally created a monster? Perhaps the answer was a little of both. A dull ache spread through my chest, but it didn't make me falter. It only sharpened my resolve. The next morning, I chose a simple, pale gray knit dress and pinned on the small bird brooch George had given me. When Michael arrived to pick me up, I could see the impatience in his every move. He kept glancing at his watch, his fingers tapping an anxious rhythm on the steering wheel. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at the screen, and I saw a flicker of panic in his eyes before he quickly silenced it. The creditors were calling. He was out of time. Oakwood Serenity Suites was on the edge of town, a modern building of glass and steel. Just as Samuel and Detective Evans had predicted, he had chosen the Lion's Den. We were led into a luxurious conference room. The director, a Mr. Miller, with a bald head and a flashy gold watch, stood to greet us with a practiced smile. Michael didn't have the patience for the sales pitch. "Thank you, Miller," he cut in rudely. "We don't have much time. My mother is already very impressed. Where are the papers?" Mr. Miller shrugged and pushed a thick, professionally bound portfolio in a dark blue leather cover toward me. Of course, here is our admission and care agreement package. Michael leaned forward and snatched the portfolio. He didn't flip through it. He went straight to a section marked with a yellow tab. I could read the bolded title at the top of the page, Durable Power of Attorney and Healthcare Directive. My heart nearly stopped. This wasn't a standard form. This granted him absolute, total control over every aspect of my life, financial, medical, and legal. With a single signature, I wouldn't just lose my assets. I would lose my personhood, my voice, my autonomy over my own body and my own life. He pushed the portfolio and a pen towards me, his voice almost a command. Sign here, Mom. Quickly now. Everything will be taken care of. From now on, you won't have to worry about a thing. He was right. I wouldn't have to worry because I wouldn't have the right to worry anymore. This was it, the final moment. I picked up the pen. My hand trembled for real this time, not from acting, but from the terrifying weight of the words on that page. I could feel Michael's eyes glued to me, full of greed and impatience. And then I set the pen down on the table. It made a small click, but in the tense silence of that room, it sounded like a gunshot. I slowly looked up, meeting Michael's gaze directly. The innocent, confused, frail look in my eyes was gone. In its place was a look that was crystal clear, sharp as ice, and full of authority. "No, Michael," I said, my voice steady and strong. "I will not sign." "What are you talking about?" Michael shouted, all patience gone. "Don't start this now. Just sign it." At that very moment, the conference room door burst open. Detective Evans walked in, flanked by 2 uniformed police officers and our lawyer Samuel Hayes. Their arrival was no coincidence. Chloe had followed us and tipped them off the moment we entered the building. "Police," Detective Evans said, her voice commanding, holding up a warrant. "We have a warrant to search this facility and to arrest Mr. Miller and Mr. Parker on charges of conspiracy to commit financial fraud." 2 officers immediately moved to restrain a stunned Mr. Miller. Michael was in complete shock. "Fraud? I'm not involved," Michael stammered. "I just brought my mother here for a tour. She needs care. I'm her son." Detective Evans turned to him, her gaze razor sharp. "Her son? A son who brings his mother to a facility currently under investigation for defrauding the elderly? That's quite a coincidence, Mr. Parker." "I didn't know anything," Michael yelled. "You have no evidence against me." "Is that so?" Chloe stepped into the room from behind the officers. "Here's your evidence, Michael," she said, her voice like steel. She held up a tablet. Chloe handed it directly to Detective Evans. The detective watched the footage, her face unreadable, but her eyes grew darker by the second. "It's just a video. It doesn't prove anything," Michael mumbled. "It proves a conspiracy," Samuel Hayes spoke for the first time, his voice firm. "And, combined with the medical report of a deliberate poisoning, along with audio recordings of coerced document signings over the past 2 weeks, and, most importantly," he pointed to the documents on the table, "being caught red-handed attempting the final act of seizing his mother's entire estate. Detective, I believe we have more than enough for charges of theft by deception and assault." Every escape route for Michael was cut off. Detective Evans nodded. "Mr. Parker, you are under arrest." She gave a signal and an officer moved in to handcuff Michael. He didn't resist anymore. He completely crumbled. I slowly stood up and walked closer to my son. I felt no triumph, only a deep, profound sadness as I quietly watched him being led away. I straightened my back and turned to Chloe. She rushed forward and wrapped her arms around me. As Michael was escorted past me, he wouldn't meet my eyes. He was just a shadow of his own greed and failure. We walked out of Oakwood Serenity Suites, hand in hand. The midday sun was bright and warm. When I looked over at Chloe, I saw a new light in her eyes. "Let's go home, Grandma," she said, squeezing my hand. "Yes," I replied, the first genuine smile in weeks blooming on my face. "Let's go home, sweetheart." The nest might be empty, but it was far from broken.
It was just waiting for a new spring. And my spring was standing right here, right beside me.